a 6-inch height difference, with Simon Vallily, a tall 6'3", but giving away 6 inches to the 6'9" Thor Bjornsson. So Thor needs to utilise his height and reach advantage just as he's going to need to against Eddie Hall in September. Now, Thor's looking in great shape here. Of course, he's lost a lot of weight since his deadlift world record of 501, where he weighed about 205 kilograms. And that, of course, is going to help him, but boxing is all about the skill of hitting and not getting hit, and that's what all the training is for. I have no doubt that both him and Eddie will come into the fight in good shape. Okay, so we have a cautious start by both fighters here, both just trying to feel each other out, get their range. Now, of course, we know that Thor likes to fight on the back foot. At the moment, his opponent is also backing off him. Thor reaching out with that jab there. Straight away you can see one perhaps issue, his hands are quite low. Yes, his opponent's out of range, but it's a good habit to throw that jab out and bring it straight back into the chin. Simon Vallily just looking for his range here. I'm sure he's going to see that there's a lot of potential for some body shots, just as Eddie Hall will in September. So the first minute, not many punches thrown, both men just sussing each other out as best they can. Simon Vallily, I'm sure, going to give Thor a chance here. Now, I have to say, Thor looks slightly confused as what to do because he's not a front foot fighter, and he was probably expecting his opponent to be a little bit more aggressive with him, and Thor's waiting to punch him on the counter, to jab him away when he's in range, but Vallily is staying out of range all of the time, which means Thor doesn't know quite what to do. Now, he is moving not just backwards, he's moving side to side a bit, which is good to see, because in his first fight, he was moving back all of the time. But you need to work in angles in boxing. You need to slip in and out, side to side, not just back and forward. You see, Thor has a tendency here when he's throwing punches to keep his hands pretty low, and these shots are fairly telegraphed. What he is doing, which he did in the first exhibition fight, is tying up his opponent pretty good when he comes in close, and that's exactly what he's going to want to do with Eddie Hall. Whenever Eddie gets in close, tie him up and wait for the referee to break them. When you have the huge height and reach advantage, you've got to make that count by keeping that distance. He does not want to be fighting in close. He wants to keep this fight at range. The problem he has here is his opponent is not doing much, and he's going to be banking on Eddie doing a lot more, being a lot more aggressive in their fight. His hands really are pretty low here. I think he's banking on the fact that his opponent's out of range, but that can soon change, and is just good habit to keep your hands up all of the time. So we're coming to the end of a cagey first round, both fighters just feeling each other out a bit. A few wild shots there at the end. Simon Vallily looking like he's waiting for Thor to come and try and do something and catch Thor on the counter, which has probably come as a bit of a surprise. We'll see a few of the highlights here of that first round. So round 2 underway, and the thing with the boxing, it's very important to get your breathing right. Thor already looks a little bit tired. He's throwing these jabs here, but he's bringing his hands back very low every time. Oh, and a big left hook has caught him. Oh, and lucky for Thor, his opponent is not coming in for the kill. Now that's why this is an exhibition and not a real boxing, because he would have come in and finished him off there. Thor was in no man's land for a few seconds there, and that's all it takes. But his opponent, thankfully, has backed off him and letting him recover here. He realised he was in big trouble. But it's exactly as I was just saying there, guys. He's throwing those jabs out, but look where he's bringing his hands back down to. That's no good at all. He's leaving himself wide open every time when his opponent finds him range. When they come together here, and his opponent's down, but I'm pretty sure that was a trip. Yeah, it was a trip. You have that quite often, guys, when you have a southpaw, as Thor is, against his opponent that's orthodox. His leg is actually inside of him as opposed to on the outside, and it's easy to get caught up and fall over there. And that left hook again is coming in. It's very dangerous. Eddie Hall will be very pleased to see that. I must say, I'm a little bit disappointed from this from Thor, because I thought he was working just on the basics all the time, and that is not where his hands need to be. Again, his opponent just backing off, letting Thor throw some shots. Thor getting a bit more aggressive here, but again, hands so low. He's having trouble with that speed transitioning from when he goes back to when he goes forward. His opponent again not really doing much, trying to let Thor try a few things, throw some shots, perhaps be a bit aggressive, but after Thor got rocked, you can see now he's not keen to come in. He'd much rather his opponent came and he could try and slip, throw some jabs on the counter, but his opponent's not giving him that opportunity. So Thor needs to find ways himself. And as he gets a bit more aggressive there with his opponent, but he's flailing a bit with his arms. Nothing straight, nothing down the middle. It's a bit wild. And his opponent just showboating a bit here. There's an absolute golfing class. And don't get me wrong here, guys. If this Simon Vallily was fighting Eddie Hall, it would be the same thing. There's a huge difference. This guy would never be able to go into World's Strongest Man. And these guys are never going to live with a boxer of this standard. But it's good experience for Thor, but as I say, I'm just a little disappointed that the fundamentals that I thought he was working on, that was probably going to be his advantage over Eddie, does not seem to be here. Look where his hands are all of the time. It's fine if Thor doesn't want to be a very aggressive fighter, but you still have to throw that jab with intention. It has to be something to deter your opponent. He needs to be really snapping that out all of the time at Eddie Hall to stop Eddie coming in. You see there his opponent dipping under his shots and Thor missing all of them straight over the top. That's the one disadvantage when you're much taller and your opponent can duck and weave right under your shots. Exactly what Eddie Hall's going to be looking for. Again, he's just throwing one or two punches. He's not putting combinations together, because if he did, this fight would be over. His opponent showboating a bit here, pinning his hands up. Oh, and he throws a big left, and Thor's down again. Perhaps the feet came together there. It looked more like a trip, but it was a big shot coming over the top, and I think Thor was just trying to get out of the way of it, but he's okay. And again, you see his opponent hands down, letting Thor try a few things, but whenever Thor tries to come in and actually throw something a bit aggressive, his opponent catches him on the counter. And this is a big learning curve for Thor, I think. Yes, it's a different class of opponent, but he's struggling here. One of the things I thought he did quite well in the first exhibition was tying up his opponent, and I would say he's done quite a good job of that again here. You see his opponent head down, arms down, and then quickly throws a shot. He's really toying with Thor, but at least he's allowing him to try a few different things. That's the point of this exhibition. Don't be confused, guys. Of course, this guy could beat him, but he's a professional boxer, and he's just giving Thor a chance to try a few things, asking some questions of him, and at the very least, Thor will be learning something from this. Look where his opponent's hands are, and look where Thor's are. This is what he's got to be watching. Thor and Eddie are both guilty of this. Now they come together, throwing a few wild shots, but they're tied up, and Thor is never going to get much power with his huge long levers from that close range. What he has got is that huge mass, and he can lean his body, the advantage of a tall boxer, over the opponent and tire them out that way when they've got them in the clinch. Again, Thor throwing a jab, but with no intention on it. Really not much going to deter his opponent with shots like that. And his opponent just stalking them a bit. Thor on the back foot, which is probably where he wants to be. His opponent stalking him. Thor almost mimicking what his opponent's doing, but that's not really what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be down so low like that. It's not going to work for him. Quite a barrage of wild shots, and Thor caught his opponent there. Difficult to say what landed, but opponent backs off him and Thor goes in for the kill. And Valili appears to just sort of roll out onto the floor there like an easy way out, but the referee's given it again as a trip and just standing him up. I mean, he didn't take another shot, but he seemed to deliberately go to the canvas as an easy way out. Slightly strange, and that is the end of the round. So a slightly wild round there, with both fighters landing a few shots, and we now have the fourth and final round. So here we go, guys. The final round of this final exhibition fight for Thor. As you see, he's very flat-footed here. He's not moving at all. He's got his jab out, but he's not really throwing it. He's just keeping his arm out at a distance. He's trying to keep his opponent out of range all of the time. But as we've seen, it hasn't been very effective, and I'm sure he's going to have to snap that jab a lot more to keep Eddie Hall away from him. Valili there goes for a wild right, but he's way out of range, so Thor is okay. Now, it's perhaps a little bit unfair to pick too many faults in Thor here. He's up against such a different class of opponent that, of course, he's never going to look great. And his opponents backed off and actually made it almost tricky for Thor, because Thor's a back foot fighter, but he's really made Thor come in and do things that he doesn't want to do. And I don't think Eddie Hall's going to do that. I think Eddie will be aggressive. And that was what Thor has been training Thor more, I believe. But he does have a bad habit here of his hands low and his hands going out wide when punches come in at him. He doesn't seem to be able to just cover up when he needs to. You see his opponent walking around, moving side to side all of the time, just keeping him off guard. And that's what Eddie Hall's going to want to do. He's going to want to use the ring, keep moving. It's not a case of just running into him. Just keep moving around, looking for those angles all of the time. And Thor needs that lateral movement as well. He looks fairly static. He's probably feeling the pace by now. I know it's only 4 rounds and he's lost a lot of weight, but he's a huge guy. And boxing does take it out of you. And perhaps his breathing's not right as well. It's very easy to hold your breath when you're boxing, but it's a dangerous thing to do because it exhausts you even faster. I think, of course, they'll take the experience of this as a plus, but perhaps against an opponent of this quality, not so much has been learnt. He was rocked with a shot, and that's probably a good thing for him. He needs to get used to getting hit and develop an ability to cope with that if Eddie does catch him. More likely than not, he's going to get caught, but not necessarily with a full punch. It's much more likely he'll be caught as he's moving in or out somewhere, and it won't be a full power. But he needs to know how to deal with those shots. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's 4 rounds. Let me know what you think. I must say I'm slightly disappointed. I know he was up against a very high-quality opponent, but I didn't feel like he did the fundamentals well. I didn't think he used his jab anything like enough. I didn't think his lateral movement was great, and he was a little bit wild. But at least he's done a couple of exhibition bouts, and that counts for something, which, of course, Eddie certainly hasn't done yet. I believe this is going to be a very dangerous fight for maybe 1 round between Eddie and Thor, and after that, they're both going to be very tired. Let me know what you think, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you very soon.